So today we celebrate this solemnity, Jesus, King of the universe. King, interesting term, and the readings give us two pictures of kingship. The first, if you caught it, that was King David. And I don't have to tell you anything about that. Everything that you and I think of kings was in King David, it was in that story. David is king of all Israel. He has all this power. He has an army to support him. You know, whatever he says is law. Whatever he wants, he gets. He has, of course, a great deal of personal wealth, if you will. Lots of servants. Pretty much anything he could possibly want. He is king. The other picture of kingship, though, is the gospel reading, Jesus hanging on a cross, which doesn't look much like what David offered. You know, that picture, they're very different pictures. But what Jesus is bringing here, this picture of kingship should not surprise us. Some of you would remember the temptations of Jesus right at the beginning of his ministry. Hey, Jesus, Satan says to him, you're hungry. Use your power to change these stones into bread. That'll be a good thing. And Jesus says no. In fact, all of the temptations in one way or another are Satan tempting Jesus to adopt a worldly sense of power like King David. And Jesus rejects it. Jesus takes on what the prophet Isaiah would call a suffering servant. That's his kingship. I am going to serve other people. So it's two very interesting pictures, but you say, oh, okay, that's lovely. What difference does it make? Well, I think it makes a lot of difference. Because the question is, when you are looking at things in your own life, at work, you know, in the news, whatever it is, which filter are you using? Are you using the King David filter, or are you using the Jesus servant filter? I'll give you two real simple examples. Most of you are probably better off for not knowing this, but the bishops of the United States got together this past week to one of their meetings. They meet twice a year, and one of the things they did was elect a new president. Well, if you follow, Catholic media, they were all abuzz leading up to this because it was an election. And just that word immediately puts you thinking of King David. You know, because the people that were writing the articles I was reading, they were talking about the different, if you will, viewpoints of these different men who had been nominated and which ones were more aligned with Pope Francis and which ones were not quite aligned with Pope Francis, and how would it work out if one was elected and not the other. And do you not hear it? It is all King David, because it's all about power. I got to get my guy to be elected, because if my guy's elected, then he is the one who's going to be able to put forth policy and influence things, and he'll get it done the way I think it should be done. Or take this synod. You know, some of you graciously helped us out. Just about a year ago now, we did some listening sessions. If you know something about this, Pope Francis basically asked the entire church, not just the bishops, the entire church to begin to discern what is the Spirit telling us. And so it started with just small conversations that we had here and other parishes had all over the world, and it is slowly filtering its way up. But there are people that are really not happy about this at all, because they have this fear, and if you listen to them talk about it, their fear is, oh my word, what'll happen if, something filters up to the top that we don't like, that isn't right, we got to keep control of this. We've got to have people at the top who can sort of keep all this in line. It's King David. It's the model of King David. It is about worldly power. But is that really what we're supposed to be doing? And I'm not sure it is. You and I are disciples of Christ. Paul says that you and I are supposed to be putting on the mind of Christ, which is another way of saying you and I are supposed to be thinking like Jesus is thinking. And the way I read all these articles about the synod and about who's head of the bishops is all King David. I'm not thinking like Jesus. They're not thinking like Jesus when I get in that mode. Jesus says, no. No, you want to be a king, you want to serve. But see, at some point, you probably haven't given this much thought, but if you do, what's going to happen, I can guarantee this, there's going to come this moment where you're going to say, oh, Jesus, this is great. I get the servant thing. It's nice. It's got a nice kind of warm, fuzzy feel to it, but, it's not very practical. Because practicality means that you have to win elections, you have to, have your people on committees, all that stuff. But, I don't know, look at Good Friday. Does that look practical to you? I mean, Jesus is hanging on a cross. Here it is, Jesus, our King of the universe. Jesus, he is hanging on a cross. I mean, the sign over his head, King of the Jews, that was put there by Pilate, probably as a way to demonstrate what power really meant, because Pilate represented Rome. And Rome was all about power and all about winning. And Pilate puts that sign up there and says, this is what happens to people who think they are kings. If you're around Rome, you lose. And so anybody, the people that jeered at him, they're looking at him like, this doesn't make a lick of sense. You said you were a king, you were the Messiah, you were all these things. So many people in Jesus' day, they were looking for someone to throw Rome out. They were looking for worldly power that would finally, once and for all, get rid of their occupying conquerors. But Jesus doesn't do that. Jesus, it's the cross. That's it. And, on that day, it must look crazy and impractical, but was it? No. Look at how it worked out. All the Christians, the Christian faith, all over the world. Jesus could have been king, but he didn't want to be. That's not what he chose. Let me end by just another example. I'll tell you up front that, I don't know, some of you are going to think it's a little controversial, and it's not my intent. I'm just really trying to raise a possibility, just trying to get you to think about these two different visions and how it actually might work in practicality, as we say, in day-to-day life. For the last couple of years, I've been really reflecting a lot on how the Christian people have handled the topic of abortion over the last 50 years in our country. Mind you, not just Catholics, Christians in general. What have we done? And it seems to me that we have taken a page out of both of these books, if you will. We have been servants. There's no doubt about that. We opened up crisis pregnancy centers, and we did all sorts of things to help women who had needs and kids and all that stuff. And that was wonderful. Absolutely. That is right out of the model of Jesus' King playbook. But we also did the Power as David book thing. We spent an awful lot of time, energy, resources, money, all that stuff, trying to make sure that we got the right people elected and that we got the right judges and we passed the right laws and all that stuff. As I look back on it, I have no idea. I don't suspect anybody did this. I don't think anybody sat around a table, in a conference table, and said, we need to think out a good strategy here, and this is how we'll do it. But it seems to me that what we ended up doing was saying, Jesus, we'll serve. We'll serve. That's how we will tackle this problem. But, that's not actually very practical. And so to get what we really want to do, we're going to need to also do this. In other words, we said we're going to have to do them both. And my question is, did we? Did we? What would have happened is my question. If you had taken all of the money, all the millions and millions of dollars, maybe it adds up to $1 billion, all the money we spent on political campaigns and lobbying and marches for life and all that stuff. What if we had taken every last dollar of that and put it into service? There would have been, clinics, crisis pregnancy centers, clinics for women all over the country. There wouldn't have been a county, a city, a neighborhood without one, because it was a great deal of money and our heart would have been in it. What would have happened? Even right now, you say, what would have happened not only to abortion, but what would have happened to our political process? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. You can never do that with history. You can't do what ifs and be certain of the answer. But I often say this, Jesus is right. He's always right. He never is wrong. And Jesus chose what to you and I looks very impractical, being a servant, but it worked. And I just have to wonder if this and so many other areas of our personal lives, how we handle our friends, how we handle the workplace, all those things, I just wonder if we might look at that and say, I know the King David thing is practical. I know it looks like it's going to work. I know it looks like it's the only option. But what if we just said to Jesus, okay, I don't really get this, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to be a servant, just like you are, Jesus, just like you were to me. What would happen?